Hello. Welcome back. I'm Janine, and today I'm going to be talking about how I have been overcoming my GAD, or generalized anxiety disorder, and overall anxiety. I did not choose to take medications when I first learned of the anxiety I faced. I've been in emotionally abusive relationships, both romantic and within my family. Always have had an anxious attachment style, only learned about it in college, and then my whole mind and my world was blown, especially when learning about Asian American family dynamics. Man, when I go through the checklist that is my life and the things I've experienced, it's a lot, but I've made it. I am here. I am surviving. I am learning how to thrive, and I think I've wanted to make this video for a while because I feel far enough past having dealt with the anxiety I faced almost all my life, and I've gotten to a place where I just have a better grapple over it. It doesn't quite overtake every second of my daily thoughts and my lifestyle, and it used to. I guess I can talk about how anxious I was before and then how I overcame it and how I'm coping now. If you're new here, I'm Janine. It's so nice to meet you. I like to talk about my mental health, physical health, and just anything that inspires me. So if you'd like to join along and become an Everbloom, feel free to subscribe. I'd love to hit 400 Everblooms and continue growing this channel. First, I'll start talking about GAD and how I knew I had GAD. So I've always had anxiety, and I would often be called like the worrywart and would just be scared of everything. Of course, this stems from childhood and anxious attachment styles. Perhaps I didn't get my needs met in the way I needed it to be. And fast forward throughout just my entire life, just could constantly worry, be scared of angering my family, scared of rejection, scared of not being enough, just constant fear, and scared of the future, not knowing what would happen. I didn't feel super stable in a lot of parts of my childhood. I know sometimes when it comes to like my parents' moods, I'd be afraid of them not being happy with me and or possibly disowning me. It wasn't super extreme, but it definitely is a lot more than whatever is an average quote-unquote experience. I don't fucking know. Not making blame. I'm able to push past a little bit and forgive, but it is a reality. And slowly over the years, I just tried to practice being brave, because if I was to try to please everybody and also please just my family, I would live under a rock or I would have killed myself. I was genuinely close to doing that because I felt so stuck in my family dynamic, and I felt very unheard. I felt very miserable, and I thought there was no way out. But luckily I was able to push past that, and therapy has been a godsend. So let's talk about therapy. In my Asian American family, therapy isn't really idolized, nor is it often suggested. It's kind of taboo in a way. Be like, oh, therapy? Why do you need therapy? When I first got into my undergrad in college, we had free healthcare, I guess, as part of our tuition. So not really free, but free as in we can use it. So they had therapists, and they had like this rotating therapy system where you have like 6 sessions per semester and you can rotate through whoever's available, which was kind of cool as like a trial run of a therapy course, but also I would see maybe the same psychologist like twice. Anyway, they all kept the record, so it was kind of helpful to be able to talk it out. In general, I'm the type of person who likes to seek advice from other people, especially those with, psychology backgrounds and degrees, and people who know a little bit more about the dynamics that I didn't know about. Okay, I need to catch my breath. I'm a little anxious talking about this, and I also just had a shit ton of sugar, so I'm kind of like, yeah. Doing therapy on campus kind of pushed me to get more therapy outside, so I tried to establish a long-term relationship with another therapist. That has been a godsend because, one, it opened my eyes to attachment styles. I genuinely didn't know about them, and I didn't realize like, oh, I'm not just crazy like all these stupid articles tell me, and you just need to calm your fucking needs down to appease a guy or appease the world. It's like, it's just me. I'm fucking anxious. Deal with it. You know what I mean? Sorry, I'm just so pissed because growing up, I'd read all these articles of like top 10 signs you're gonna push him away or whatever. It's like, no, if you need reassurance, you need reassurance, and that's okay. There's a balance to like anxiety in relationships and overall, because it can be a lot for some people. So I'll maybe talk about that if y'all are interested in another video. But yeah, learning about that was so life-changing. So the book called Attached is what my therapist at the time recommended. It genuinely changed and saved my life. It really showed me what I needed and reaffirmed me that what I needed is okay. It also kind of told me why certain relationships didn't work out, because I know that me having an anxious attachment style, of course, always trying to migrate towards the secure attachment style, can be really triggered, for lack of better words, with a person with an avoidant attachment style, who is somebody I used to date. Quite a lot of people I used to date who had that attachment style, and it would just kind of be this constant push and pull and lots of anxiety, and then the person would back off and then I would be freaking out, and so stressful, unnecessary. Get yourselves a secure person, a secure partner. And in seeing that therapist, it made me think that I wanted to get an actual diagnosis, so I went to a psychotherapist, psychoanalyst, someone who administers a test. I have to Google the term, so pardon, but he was able to give me a test. He observed my mannerisms, we talked, I took the test, and he's like, oh yeah, you do have a GAD. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, most people who take the test already know what they have. And I was like, yeah, I know I have a lot of anxiety. And it's really validating to know that I'm not just going quote unquote insane. I don't like using that word, but legitimately sometimes it felt that way. But it was so nice to have that little stamp of approval, or like the validation that nothing's necessarily wrong with you. It's just, this is how you've been conditioned, and this is how you see the world, and this is what it is. When I learned about my diagnosis, I started giving myself more grace. So I know in my classes, I would often try to get accommodations for tests because I had that anxiety, and maybe it'd be hard to sleep the night before, so I'd get extra time for tests and etc. Also, in general, it just kind of lets people know like, hey, I'm kind of struggling with this and I need a little bit extra help, but I promise I can still do my best. So that was a pretty big game changer. There was a time too when my anxiety would be really bad, especially when I would be around my family or in super stressful situations. My therapist gave me the option of taking an opioid. I forgot the name of it, but essentially she was like, you could take half of it if you're feeling super anxious and you need to relax. And there was one time when I had a family outing and I took half of it because I was so stressed. And it was the first time where I actually genuinely felt calm. I felt safe. I felt protected. I felt like okay. And I was like, whoa, it's quiet in my head and I don't feel scared. This is nice. I kind of had not an issue with the medicine, but I was scared of medicine in general, and I didn't want to be addicted to that or have to rely on it. I know I felt bad in a sense of feeling like I needed to have it to feel quote unquote normal, whatever that is. Of course, no shame to anyone taking meds. If you need it, you need it. I've learned that it's fine. Like, it's okay. I know just myself at the time, I was just very reluctant. But it did show me possibilities of like, oh, I can actually be fine and be okay when in super stressful situations with people who can aggravate that anxiety. And it's hard too, especially when the people who can aggravate the anxiety have anxiety themselves. Like, I know something I've learned is I don't have the energy or the strength to deal with a lot of people's anxieties all the time. Like, I have to be so careful. When I was streaming, I would try to do a lot of mental health content live, and some people would feel so comfortable with me, they would freaking like DM me all their troubles and just constantly like vent in chat, and I felt so bad, but I just learned I have to set boundaries, and that was super important that I didn't realize was key and missing. And speaking more about boundaries, that's something I also learned within my family too. Like, my therapist taught me like, hey, if you're being called names and being berated, you don't have to just listen to it, you can walk out. And that was legitimately mind-blowing to me. I talked about this in a previous video. You could kind of check it out more about my own upbringing, but I was so surprised. I was like, oh, cool, I don't have to stand for that. And slowly over time, I just kind of learned like that I deserve love, I deserve to be respected regardless of my age. Speaking of age, oh gosh, it's just in like the Asian culture, or in many cultures, like the older you are, the more respect you get because you're older and wiser, quote unquote. I think there's still validity to that, but at the same time, it doesn't mean if you're young you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you should be disrespected or like they should be subjected to be treated poorly. So setting boundaries within my family, like, hey, don't call me this name, I don't like being called this name, it hurts me. Or, hey, you're being really angry right now, I don't want to be yelled at, I need to take some space and let's talk about this later. Or like, hey, I want to have a good relationship with you, and if you continue to talk to me like that, it'll be very hard to feel happy and feel good. Luckily, I was able to kind of reform those relationships over time, but it did take a lot of therapy and help and just affirmation of my own value, my worth, and it's scary to stand up to people and strangers, but it's also even scarier, in my opinion, to stand up to people who have provided your existence and everything you know in the world. There's a lot of bravery in that. So if you also did that and are also doing that, I commend you. It's definitely not easy. And of course, it can go so many different ways for so many different families and people. Man, I feel like this whole video, it's hard to breathe. I don't know if it's like what I did before the video or if it's like the topic itself. So dealing with my anxiety now, like, I still have it and it still comes from time to time, but I have a lot of moments of peace and I just kind of relax. I mean, of course, I'm like older, I'm more out of those toxic situations and it's a little bit easier. I know I attribute that again to age, to experience, to being more financially independent, as well as just being wiser and knowing the tools or like having my emotional toolkit of what to do when I do feel anxious. So for me, I don't know, like relaxing, playing games, decorating, cleaning, all those things bring me some sort of peace. So I try to do those when I feel very stressed. I just remember my anxiety being super bad, where be afraid of everything. Like my chest would constantly feel tight. I would feel out of breath. There was even a time where I was having chest pain due to an anxiety attack, but I thought it could be something else. So we went to the emergency and they did an EKG and everything. And of course they let me in right away because it was chest pain. They didn't find anything, but I did realize like, oh, it's a panic attack, okay. But of course I discovered that later. It just goes to show that anxiety can cause a lot of stress in the body. I don't know also if anxiety has any cause to like other sickly conditions. So like me having my psoriasis, psoriatic arthritis, I know that it can kind of like internalize and make us feel very uncomfortable, and if we don't deal with it, it can be a lot. It's just funny sometimes because like the people who can cause you anxiety want to try to help, but if they cause it, I don't know. That's where I learned that it's really a lot of internal work that you have to do to like really manage that. Man, if I did medications, I feel like that probably would have helped maybe, but I took the long way of learning and trying to cope. It's definitely not been super easy, but we managed. And I guess if I had one piece of advice for anyone dealing with severe anxiety like I did, as cliche as it sounds, I think seeking professional help is really important. Like, it genuinely transformed how I think and how I view the world. Like, I learned that, again, I don't have to be subject to being mistreated, that my anxieties are not necessarily the truth, that the future is always uncertain. I can only do what I can. It's like the serenity prayer, focus, like give me the serenity to understand the difference between the things I can control and the things I can't. A lot of overcoming my anxiety is just accepting that, all right, this is what's happening. What can I do? Versus like, oh my God, is this going to happen? I'm going to be scared until it happens or until it doesn't happen, and then I can breathe. But that wasted energy and time anticipating something that may or may not happen is a waste. It really does nothing. It's like a rocking chair. Like, it gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. And sometimes it's inevitable. So like, I think there's this line of understanding our emotions are valid, and at the same time that anxiety can produce these really weird thoughts and strange realities that don't make a lot of sense. Like, sometimes my mind is like, oh, if you eat that cookie, you're gonna die. It's like, well, wait, hold on. So I kind of like catch my thought and I'm like, yo, what is in this cookie that will kill me right now? Is there poison? I don't think so. Is it like oozing something? Is that mold? It's like little things here and there. And then when it comes to dealing with like family stuff or friend stuff and anxieties with that. Well, one, I've learned to surround myself with, myself. I was gonna say people who don't have anxiety, but everyone has some sort of anxiety, but I know I just kind of like create, I guess, a boundary. People are feeling stress, I will listen and whatnot, but I'm not gonna soak up their anxiety as if it's my own and worry for them, but rather I can hopefully provide a voice of reason or just be a shoulder to cry on or just to listen to the person. I've just been really selective about who I let into my inner space. So that's one of the reasons I stopped streaming, is because I don't want to hear like everyone's troubles. As selfish as that sounds, I just don't have the capacity for that, and I think it's okay to be selfish sometimes. I think GAD is just something that I'll probably have indefinitely as I keep continuing to learn how to be more secure within myself and within my partnership. And of course, being with somebody who is secure helps a lot. It's just like a big learning experience, as is this life, but there is hope. If you are dealing with an anxiety disorder and you feel like it's really hard, it does get better, in my opinion. I'm really glad I stuck around. I'm glad that I pushed through. I'm glad that I've learned. I'm glad that I didn't crumble too much. I did a little bit, but I also was able to have some support. And so hopefully, if you're also dealing with this, hope this is kind of helpful. It's a little jaggedy. I realize I think I do have anxiety when talking about this, because no one's perfect. So even if you do reach a point where you can manage your anxiety, it's not always completely gone. And that's okay, because like a little bit of anxiety isn't bad. It's just when it becomes so much that it overtakes your life and prohibits you from having fun or from just being happy, enjoying the moment, that's when it can become really intrusive. So that's where I had to learn to kind of curb my anxiety and put it at bay and just reclaim myself, my life, my headspace, my happiness. And it's a work in progress. So again, hope this was kind of helpful. If you've experienced GAD or anxiety and you want to share some tips on how you've dealt with that, feel free to let me know. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.